metaphysical necessities. But before we talk about metaphysical necessities, what would be examples of metaphysical necessity? Consider the following. Examples of metaphysical necessities would be water. Water is identical to H2O. And helium is identical to atomic number 2. These would be examples of metaphysical necessities. These are facts about the world, but yet is in some sense true in all possible worlds, right? But before we understand why these are metaphysically necessary, let's talk about modal notions like possibilities and necessities. So, modal notions. What are modal notions? Modal notions are notions like possibilities, and necessity. So possible world, the approach that I want to approach this is do approach called possible world semantics. And basically possible world semantics is a semantic that help us understand what possibilities are and what necessities are. And okay, so what are these possible world semantics? Well, the possible world semantics as most primitive and basic level is that there is going to be a set of possible worlds. You might ask, what are these possible worlds? Some say that possible worlds are basically anything that is logically possible is a possible world. Okay, but we're not gonna delve too much into what's the nature of possible worlds. Some say that some say that it's a maximum set of propositions. Some say that it's it's possible world is just merely a world that is logically possible. But once we have this notion of a possible world, we can make sense of possibilities and necessities, right? So possible world, possibility P. So what makes a P possible is just to say that there exists so now you have these possible worlds as these are possible worlds, right? And then there's infinite many possible worlds, right? So what makes a proposition true, right? It's like, let's say, so P is a proposition, right? Proposition. P can be either true or false, right? P is either true or false. So in this possible world way of thinking, either P is true or false, right? P is either true with respect to W, right? With respect to a world, where W is a world. So is true or false with respect to W. where W is W star, right? Let's consider this world W star. So a proposition is either true or false based on what we're talking about. With respect to what world are we talking about? Now, so now that we know a little bit about this, so now we're gonna define what possibility P is. Okay, when we say that P is possible, all right, what we really mean is that there exists one possible world such that P is true in that world, right? When we say that P is necessary, what we mean is that for all possible world, such that P is true. So when P is possible, that means that there is at least one possible world, or one possible world, or more than one possible world, such that P is true in that world, right? When P is necessary, it means that for all possible worlds, P is true. Okay. So when we look at metaphysical necessity, metaphysical necessity, it's going to be a notion that is based on top of this notion of possibilities and necessities. All right. When we say that water is H2O, right? So this is true. I suppose that this is true, right? And not just it is true, but it's necessary true, right? Why is it necessary true? Because now you imagine that there are infinite many possible worlds, right? Right? Infinite many possible worlds. In each of these worlds, there is this proposition: water is H2O, right? So you have P. In all, so in all of these worlds, water is going to be identical. Water is going to be identical to H2O, right? It's going to be true for this world, and infinite many worlds. But what if you have, let's say, a world in which water, let's say, is something like H3O. Well, we would deny that this is a world. We would deny that water is H3O. So this world is not considered part of the set. We only consider all possible worlds such that water is defined the way we want it, right? Which is water essentially is H2O. So we would deny any world where water is something like XYZ. If water is X, Y, and Z, then it would not be water, and would not consider that world to be an exception. So ergo, the only possibility is that in all possible worlds, water is H2O. Okay. Now, what's true for water is H2O is the same as is also true for, let's say, helium. Helium has the atomic number 2, right? It would be true in all possible worlds. And in a world, let's say in one of the possible world where, helium has atomic number, let's say 4. Well, that's not a possible world in which we would say that that element, is helium. So we would deny that what that's no longer part of our consideration. So water, sorry, helium being what it is, having atomic number two, is an essential property of what is to be helium. So we would deny any world in which helium isn't doesn't have the property of having atomic number two. All right. So yeah. So this concludes this discussion on metaphysical necessity. Metaphysical necessity is just basically these identities, right? That is true in all possible worlds. It has to do with the essential properties of things, right? All right. Thank you so much.